Humanistas, how was your third week of indulging yourselves on the disciplines history and linguistics? There is more to what we know. Okay, there is more to what we know already about these disciplines. So let us continue our endeavor on learning the disciplines of social sciences. Okay? Now, in our previous discussion, we discussed and learned about the historical and social foundations of history and linguistics, and we have known the significance of these disciplines in the society. This week, let us again continue our adventure in dealing with the disciplines of social sciences, and this time in the realm of psychology and political science. So what are you waiting for? Come now and have fun learning. In this discussion, these are the learning objectives that we must have to attain. First, connect the disciplines of psychology and political science with their historical and social foundations. Second, trace the historical foundations and social context that led to the development of psychology and political science as social science disciplines. And third is to determine how psychology and political science can be used to address social concerns. So what do you know about psychology and what is your understanding about the term? The root word of psychology comes from the Greek word psyche, which means soul. Hence, psychology is in essence the study of the soul. And the earliest use of the word in its modern sense was made by the Dutch physician Stephen Blankart, okay, when he distinguished anatomy as that which treats the body and psychology as that which treats the soul. So the definition of psychology has evolved through time. And some psychologists would define the term psychology as the study of behavior and mental processes. Now, psychology is an interdisciplinary study which involves disciplines in the social sciences, natural sciences, and even humanities and philosophy. That is why it is said that psychology is the hub science, since many areas of study provide information to its development. Psychology seeks to answer why the human mind, okay, works the way it does and how it functions and operates. And due to the depth and breadth of these questions, scholars open up psychology to partake and accept theories and principles utilized in other disciplines. And psychologists inquire about concepts related to personality, behavior, cognition, and perception. And the application of psychology is not simply confined with the treatment of mental health problems, but encompasses also even other areas of human activity. Because psychology can also be applied to sports, to media, organizational development, human resources, even in marketing, in law enforcement, and even in war or military warfare. Okay? Now it's time for us to discuss the development of psychology. In ancient Greece, Plato developed his theory of the tripartite soul, through which he identified the three parts of the soul: the logical, the spirited, and the appetitive. And according to Plato, okay, the logical part of the soul pertains to the man's ability to think and make rational choices. The spirited part of the soul refers to man's temper, anger, and courage. and the appetitive part of the soul is associated with man's pleasures and desires. For Plato, a healthy mind is achieved when the spirited and appetitive parts of the soul become subservient to the logical part. It means to say that for Plato, okay, a healthy mind can only be attained if the logical part will dominate the spirited and the appetitive part of the soul. Because, as Plato said, that the logical part is, okay, the rational ability or the man's ability to think and make rational choices. For Aristotle, man can be understood by his functions. A rock functions simply to exist. A plant functions to grow. An animal functions to grow, to feel, and to move. While man functions to grow, to feel, to move, and most importantly, to reason. And since reasoning primarily distinguishes humans from animals, a person healthy in mind and body, according to Aristotle, exercises the primary function of reasoning over his or her lesser functions. Therefore, if a person simply eats and copulates without thinking, he or she lives like an animal and not completely as a human being. Okay? In ancient China, Confucius envisioned the superior man to have the following virtues: humaneness, righteousness, proper right, knowledge, and integrity. And the teachings of Confucius eventually became part of the first psychological examinations which was given to aspiring public officials of ancient China. And his teachings would become the main scope of ancient China's version of civil service exams. In ancient India, the core tenets of Hinduism and Buddhism focus on self-awareness as a method to enlightenment. Like, for example, in Hindu teachings have been studied in relation to psychology because of its similar use of terms like consciousness and unconsciousness. However, in Hinduism, the conscious mind is related to Atman. They call that Atman, the personal self, while the unconscious is related to Brahman, okay, Brahman, or the impersonal self. Okay. Now, the main philosophical goal of Hinduism is to achieve total self-awareness wherein Brahman is realized as the force where Atman resides. Yan. Yan ang paniniwala ng mga Hindus in ancient India during that time. On the other hand, Buddhist psychology is part of what is now known as Humanistic Psychology. It is the psychological approach that focuses on self-awareness to achieve or to have a healthy mind. And today, psychology uses the Buddhist concept of meditation as a way by which individuals reach a certain understanding of themselves. And this time, we are now ready to talk about the fields of psychology. First, we have what we call the biological psychology. It studies psychology from a biological perspective. Okay? It examines how thoughts, feelings, and behavior physically affect human beings or animals. And among the questions that biological psychology seeks to answer are the following, like Do heredity traits or hereditary traits translate to psychological behavior? Is behavior inherited from our parents? How can the understanding of animal psychology help explore human psychology? So those are among the many questions that can be related in the study of biological psychology. Another field of psychology is behavioral psychology or behaviorism. In this field, it determines psychological processes through the use of observable data. Because behaviorism here is essentially a learning theory as it inquires the developmental aspects of behavior and analyzes quantitatively the changes that occurred over time. And it also focuses on how the environment shapes the development of behavior. And this field involves experimentation to determine psychological behavior and seeks to answer the questions: how can pain and pleasure condition psychological behavior? Or what environmental stimuli can affect sense perception enough to alter thoughts and actions? Okay, those are the questions that can be related to behavioral psychology. Another field is cognitive psychology. It analyzes how sensory data are interpreted and are used by the mind to produce behavior. Okay? It is a field focused on how information and knowledge is gained, selected, stored in memory, retrieved, and internally manipulated. And the mental processes such as attention, memory, perception, language, and the like are areas involved in cognitive psychology. Okay? Because in this field, cognitive psychology relates to an individual's capacity to comprehend the world around him or her. And it also attempts to answer the questions: how is language acquired? How do we select the most useful data out of the many available information? Okay? Or how does our brain effectively allows us to act using knowledge of the past events? Okay? Social psychology is another field, and it is the area of psychology that inquires on the changes in behavior, emotions, thoughts, and feelings of individuals in a group, or as a group, or in relation to other groups or the community. This means that in social psychology, it interprets the behavior of groups in the presence of others. Yan. And forming collaboration between sociologists and psychologists, this field studies human behavior as a result of immediate social interactions, both physical and virtual. And among the questions that social psychology attempts to answer are: how can television, commercials, and other forms of advertisement affect the buying habits of people? Or how can mass demonstrations, rally, affect the psychology of the people participating in them? Or how does ideology control the very lives of the people? Okay? And then we also have psychoanalysis. Psychoanalysis here is an area of psychology that can be philosophical and practical inquiry, such that ideas and concepts which are metaphysical in nature can only be theorized but not experimented on. Okay? The main idea behind psychoanalysis is the concept of unconscious. And we cannot really experiment on this. Okay? This is what we call metaphysical in nature and can only be theorized but not experimented on. Now, talking about the unconscious mind, it is the level of human thought, hidden from one's consciousness or immediate understanding. And studies in psychoanalysis reveal that the unconscious is created even before the person becomes aware that he or she is a person. Would you believe that? Diba? It can be theorized, but cannot be experimented on. Yan. But psychoanalysis is also an important field of psychology because talking about unconscious thoughts and feelings, okay, surface the conscious mind in some form or another, which affects our lives and behavior. Okay? And when these unconscious thoughts become a problem, a psychoanalytic therapy may be suggested to put the conscious mind at ease or in equilibrium. Okay? Later on, we will discuss more about psychoanalysis for you to understand the concept of the unconscious and the conscious. Another field of psychology is humanistic psychology. It is a field that focuses on how a person can better achieve self-actualization through the development of his or her abilities. And it is also a holistic approach to psychology as it aims to maximize one's self-awareness and behavior. Humanistic psychology also promotes that a person has an intrinsic ability to focus his or herself and her life in a meaningful way. And among the approaches used in this field are, first, the person-centered therapy of Carl Rogers, if you are aware of this, wherein clients allow themselves to open up and express all their emotions, okay, all their thoughts, okay, so that they can really realize, okay, and maximize their self-awareness and behavior. Another approach is the existential approach, which enables clients to better understand themselves by seeking out their true potential and inquiring on the nature of their existence. So this is a person-centered approach when we talk about humanistic psychology. Now let us learn the key concepts in psychology. First, we have personality. Personality is defined as the consistent pattern of an individual's behavior, attitude, and thoughts. Actually, personality is defined differently by psychologists throughout different periods of time and school of thought. Okay? But in general term, when we talk about personality, it is really defined as the consistent pattern of an individual's behavior, attitude, and thoughts. That is why sometimes you are called like masungit, mabait, because there is a consistent pattern of that kind of behavior, attitude, or thoughts. Okay? Nakikita nila ng madalas sa iyo yon. Now, another concept in psychology is the unconscious mind. Okay? This concept is somewhat very difficult, okay, to understand. That is why we will have a separate discussion of this later on. Okay? But when we talk about the unconscious mind, as theorized by Sigmund Freud, the unconscious is the hidden or underlying structure of consciousness, where a person's repressed emotions, feelings, or traumatic memory is stored. So dito pala nakalagay lahat ng mga repressed emotions natin because they are really traumatic. Okay? They gave us somewhat an experience that is not good. That is why the mind will put that into our unconscious part of the mind. And they will be repressed. Okay? They will become repressed emotions, feelings, or traumatic memory. Yan. And according to Freud, okay, we are unconsciously being influenced by our repressed thoughts. Although they are hidden in our unconscious mind, they are actually affecting us. Okay? unconsciously being influenced by we are unconsciously being influenced by our repressed thoughts. And what are these repressed thoughts? And what is repression? Repression is a form of self-preservation in as much as it removes unpleasant thoughts from our conscious mind. So all the things that we do not want to remember, all the things and experiences that are not good, okay, our mind will try to put that in our unconscious part of the mind. Okay? An example of repressed thoughts surfacing in our mind is a slip of the tongue, wherein we suddenly utter words that we do not mean to say in a particular event or situation. Okay? Repressed emotions yon, repressed thoughts, or repressed memory. Okay? Don't worry, we will have a separate discussion on this so that we will be able to understand why do we have this drawing here. Diba? Yung tinatawag natin, you must not judge the tip of the iceberg because below the tip of the iceberg, okay, is the hidden part. And in relation to psychology, okay, we have here the unconscious part of the mind, in which we will discuss later on. Okay? Motivation is another concept in psychology. And motivation is the reason why a person acts. It is actually the driving force behind actions and is influenced by the environment, okay? Social factors, our personal choices, okay? And other psychological traits. Then, motivation serves as a guide as to how we could achieve our goal. Yan. That's why we wanted to achieve the goal because there is a motivation. Why do you want to become like this? Why do you want to have this kind of thing? It's because actually there is a motivation for us why we need to get those things and why we need to do those things. Okay? Yan. And another concept is development. Development refers to the changes that occur in a person throughout his or her life. Okay? And these changes are not only physical, your height, your weight, okay, your body build, but also the changes that will happen in your emotional, social, spiritual aspect of your life. Okay? And one example in the study of development is the language acquisition of a child. Yan. There are varying theories kasi as to why a child can learn language in, in a relatively amount of time, whereas an adult would take longer to acquire a second or third language. Yan. That is an example of development. This time, you are now ready to know the current applications of psychology. Be aware of them and have a more profound research about these applications. Okay? First, we have mental testing. Actually, psychological tests are commonly given as a requirement for job applications or school or university entrance examinations. Naranasan nyo na yan. Psychological tests aim to measure the respondent's personality traits, behavior, belief, and feelings, or to determine if he or she has some form of psychological problem. Yan. And aside from written tests, mental testing also comes in the form of interview. And so, the overall aim of mental testing is to get a comprehensive assessment of the person's mental health and provide a deeper understanding of problems the patient has. So this is very important also, okay, as an application in psychology. You can be a psychologist, or a psychometrician, testing the mental capacity or assessing the mental the personality traits, the behavior, belief, and feelings of an individual who needs to be tested. Okay? Another application in psychology is mental health care. Mental health care is provided to individuals with personality disorders, mental disorders, or emotional problems that are severe enough to affect the way they function in life and in society. In here, mental health care, okay, is provided by clinical psychologists and psychiatrists so that the individual could properly function in society by means of what we call undergoing therapy. Okay? And there are many treatments used by mental health care practitioners, including psychotherapy, medication also. Okay? Another current application is health, well-being, and social change. In here, okay, it educates patients by providing instructions on how to cope with illnesses or how to maintain a healthy lifestyle, especially now that we are in a pandemic world. And our health, our well-being are deeply being affected because of this pandemic. Yan. And psychologists have an array of roles in the area of public health. Okay? And psychologists can also give doctors recommendations on how to properly address and approach patients in terms of their health, well-being, and social change. Okay? And psychologists are also able to provide new knowledge on various social issues by researching. For example, the effects of this pandemic, okay, on the mental health and consciousness of the people, or the effect of bullying in schools to children. Yan. These are all related to the application of health, well-being, and social change. Now we're done with psychology. So we are now ready to talk about political science. Political science is the study of political power relations, behavior, and activities, as well as systems of government from a domestic, international, and comparative perspective. Traditionally, if you are aware that the study of political science focuses primarily on the state and its institutions. Okay? The state and the elements of the state. Yan. But in contemporary study of political science, it has a broader and more encompassing approach as it deals with societal, cultural, psychological factors that affect the political system. This means that in political science nowadays, it does not only focus in the study of the government, of the state in relation to the people, but also the other factors that are important to consider because these factors can really affect the political system of the state and particularly of the government. Okay? The term politics is derived from the Greek word polis, which refers to the Greek city-states or politikos, which means of, for, or relating to citizens, or in Aristotelian terms, affairs of the city. It is from this term that political science had been created. Okay? Yan. In the broader sense, okay, relating politics to political science, politics is the theory and practice of influencing other people. Okay? It is also the theory or principle of organizing control or governance over the people, the community, or the state. Okay? And given the concept of politics here, will allow political science to study really the phenomenon that are political in nature. Okay? The phenomena that are political in nature. Like for example, the concept of election, okay, the concept of rally or going to the street to protest, okay, the concept of insubordination, the concept of terrorism, they are all part of political science. Okay? And these are somewhat areas wherein political science seek to study and to understand. Okay? And let us talk about the development of political science. For your information, okay, although the roots and foundations of political science have been laid for over 2,000 years in the ancient Greece, okay, it is not that old as an academic discipline. Okay? Because it was only in the 19th century that the discipline of political science was given particular focus with the publication of Civil Liberty and Self-Government by Francis Lieber sometimes, okay, in 1853. Okay? Francis Lieber was a professor of political science and history at the University of Columbia. Okay? And in his work, Lever discussed the nature and history of civil liberty that incorporates the studies on different constitutions. Okay? And the study of political science as an academic discipline further developed with the initiative of John Burgess when he established a school of political science, still the same at the Columbia University in 1880. Okay? And in 1886, the school published the Political Science Quarterly, which became the first academic journal used as a platform by scholars to express their ideas on the discipline of political science. And then, okay, Johns Hopkins University in 1887 created also the Historical and Political Science Association. So there were two academic institutions that paved way into the development of political science as an academic discipline. The Columbia University and the Johns Hopkins University. Okay? Now, a rigorous application of empirical and statistical methods in political science was introduced through the positivist movement during the 1920s. You can see the gap, diba, of the development of political science. It began 1850, and then it was developed through time until there was really a rigorous application of empirical and statistical method in the study of political science in the 1920s. And it can be manifested by looking into the positivist movement. Okay? And this positivist movement was mainly attributed to the directive given by the Social Science Research Council to encourage scientific research in the fields of economics, sociology, and political science. Yan. Now, this scientific approach to political science was then reinforced by the rise of behavioral psychology or behaviorism in the 1950s. 1950s na yan. Okay, almost 30 years. Okay, and in this scientific approach of behavioral psychology, okay, it pushed the study of the political science discipline to become interdisciplinary. Okay? And among the effects of behaviorism in political science was the shifting of focus from large institutions like the state, okay, to individual actors in a political system, like the political leaders. Yan. The political organizations or group. Yan. From a broader perspective, okay, the behavioralist movement had developed political science by shifting their focus from large institutions to individual actors in a political system. Okay? Yan. And some of the most notable contributors to this development, okay, were thinkers such as David Easton, Charles Merriam, and Arthur Bentley. And you will know them later on if you will have our subject politics and governance. Yeah. Now, the behavioral revolution continued to play a significant role in political science at that point, okay? Introducing various methods of research, various techniques of data collections, and other empirical methods in line with the study of political science as an academic discipline. But while behaviorism paved way for a more serious integration of scientific techniques in studying political science, it was soon realized that real social and political issues were being overlooked. And so political scientists at that time then pushed for the discipline to be more socially relevant. Meaning to say that the focus of political science must not only about structures, institutions, political actors, but also to the events and phenomenon, okay, social issues and concerns that are happening in the society. That will really affect, okay, the activities, okay, and the undertakings of the state, particularly the government and its relation to the people in the society. By this time, we are now ready to know the different fields of political science. First, we have what we call the field of comparative politics. Comparative politics refers to the study, okay, or it studies the differences and similarities of the political systems of the world in an empirical manner. Okay? Yan. It is not focused only on analyzing particular country, but is more of a method of analysis by comparing various political systems of different countries around the world. That is why, if you're going to pursue political science as your uh, course in college later on, you will have this kind of subject, comparative politics and governance of different countries around the world. Okay? Yan. Aside from that, this field, comparative politics, okay, is also focused on comparative foreign policy and comparative government as some of its specific subfield. Another field of political science is political philosophy. It is said that political philosophy is the root from which political science sprouted from. Why? Because the most notable concepts are found in political philosophy, which include justice, law, human rights, and the concept of government. Kaya nga sinasabing dito talaga nag-sprout or na-develop, okay, yung pag-aaral ng political science as an academic discipline. Okay? Political philosophy as a field of study covers theories from ancient to postmodern thoughts on politics. That is why you will also have political theories, political thoughts na subjects later on pag nasa college ka. Okay? Another field is public law. It is a field in political science which focuses on the legal concerns between the state and the people, such as constitutional law and administrative law. Actually, this field of political science is very interesting. In my personal view, because it talks about legal concerns between the state and the people. It talks about the relationship of the state to its people. Yan. And in public law, okay, we can also study here on how the implementation of state laws directly affects individuals. It is also a field in political science which focuses on the legal concerns. Okay? And also the undertakings of the government, okay, or the state through the government in dealing with the people who are violating the laws, okay, the rules, and the policies of the society. And public law now. Yeah. What are the key concepts in political science? One of the important concepts in political science is the concept of power. Power is the capacity to influence another, may it be a state, a non-state, or an individual actor, or the people in the society. Okay? And from this concept of power, questions such as authority, rights, okay, legitimacy, and justice emerge. It is an important concept where relations are based on power. Diba? Kaya nga sinasabi nila, uh, with great power comes great responsibility. Diba? Sabi din ng iba, absolute power corrupts. Okay? Power corrupts na nga. And how more? Diba? If that is an absolute power. You will also know those concepts and ideas when we talk about the concept of power in politics and governance. Now, another concept in political science is the concept of politics. It is the state's exercise of power and management of internal issues and international concerns. So politics here is the state's exercise of power and management. Okay? Remember that. It is through politics that the government or the state through the government can exercise its power and to manage not only domestic issues but also international concerns as well. And another concept is the state. The state, okay, may have various or varying definitions depending on the context, depending on the circumstances, and ideals of the person who view the concept of the state. That is why, if you observe, we have what we call a democratic state, an authoritarian state, okay, an absolute state, authority of the state, is because there are varying definitions of the state depending on how we view, okay, on its context, circumstances, and ideals. Yan. But for the purpose of our discussion, okay, the Oxford English Dictionary provides a simple definition of the state as an organized political community under one government. Remember that. Okay? And classically, a state consists of four elements: territory, sovereignty, government, and the people. Yan. Those are the four elements of the state. If one is lacking in these four elements of the state, then it cannot be called a state. There must be the four elements present to call it a state. Certainly, psychology and political science, with all the other disciplines, contribute into the study of society. Psychology helps us to understand the individual self, why people behave in such a way, and how do we address issues pertaining the role of individual in the society. Political science, on the other hand, provides us the understanding of how members of the society interact with the established government and how control and order play a significant role in achieving a good society. And with this, thank you for listening. Good luck and God bless. See you next time.